Hey, thanks for joining me. In today's video, we're going to take a deep dive on a new product from NewAir. This is the kind of the newest member of their portable refrigerator lineup. This is a monstrous 115 quart dual zone car fridge freezer. And in fact, I just got a picture of it here for you because I can't fit this thing in the shot inside my studio. In fact, let me cut to some video here and show you just how big this thing is. As you can see, this thing is massive. I mean, I could barely reach the lids on the top, and I got to keep a stepladder handy just to get stuff in and out of it. All right, that was obviously a joke, and I was just amusing myself with some green screen. But seriously, look how much bigger this NewAir 115 quart version is compared to their 48 quart version. Both have dual zones. They both have wheels in the back. They both have telescopic handles for easy ground transport. But this 115 quart version also has a lid for each zone. All right, let's get into some of the important specs that you need to be aware of with this fridge, and then we're going to take a look at how the testing went, kind of what some of the standout features are. But let's start with price. So this thing is priced at $599, but there is a discount code in the description below if you want to check that out. And that link will get you this thing for about $540, which is actually a very good price for a refrigerator that is in this particular size, in this 100+ quart range. For reference or for comparison, a Yeti fridge at about half of the capacity, around 60 quarts, is going to cost you roughly the same money as this guy. So that's a pretty big difference. And by the way, it is available on Amazon as well as NewAir's website. I'm pretty sure that the best price is on NewAir's website. But again, I'll leave links to both in the description below if you want to go check those out and see if you can find the best deal. Now, NewAir does put a 1-year warranty on all of its refrigerators, at least as far as I'm aware of, and there is a 30-day money-back, no-hassle return if you get this and within that first 30 days decide it's not for you. Let's talk about dimensions, because this thing is big, although clearly not as big as I made it out to be in the intro. But in terms of length, from the ends of the wheels all the way to the edge of the handle, it is 40 inches. So the handle, you can remove the handle by removing some screws if you needed to for some reason, and that would probably get it down to about 38 inches long, if you were to remove the handle. Now, in terms of height, this thing is 21 inches high, and then in terms of depth in this direction here, it is 22 inches in this direction. Now, in terms of the capacities of the individual compartments, the refrigerator compartment, this one here on the left, is 67.5 quarts, and the freezer part, which is generally considered the one on the right, is 47.5 quarts. So they're both quite big.
That's what she said.
Now, in terms of weight, this thing empty is 64 pounds. So it's a bit of a beast just by itself. It's manageable for one person. It's just kind of, clunky because it's so big. But it does have handles, in addition to the telescopic handle here, it's got a handle on the other end. So especially when you start putting stuff in there, if you need to lift this up, that's definitely a two-person job, and there's handles on each end for that. Now, in terms of temperature range, both zones, obviously, since it's a dual zone, can be configured independently, and they can either one have a range anywhere down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit up to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, in terms of powering options, it does support both 12 volt and 24 volt car power systems. And they do give you a car charging cable or power cable to be able to run this thing from your car. They also give you an AC adapter, and the AC adapter can handle voltages anywhere from 100 volts all the way up to 240 volts. Now, there's a third option to power the refrigerator. There's an optional battery that you can put in the side, and it's one of those little self-contained batteries. You can't use it for anything else. You can only use it to run the refrigerator, but there is a port on there that's a DC 5521 that will allow you to recharge that battery with a solar panel, I think up to about 100 watts. So that's pretty cool that you do have that option as well. All right, let's jump to some of the testing clips that I did and see how it performed. All right, let's take a look and see how our frozen water test is working. Well, this is on the refrigerator side, but you can put this temperature all the way down to, I think, -4. I currently have it set, I think, at 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's see how we're doing. And yeah, you can see we are definitely freezing water. Let's just do a quick check here. And that is coming in at -2. So colder than I was expecting. All right. And take a look at the freezer side. I do have stuff in here. because I've been using this as a freezer for the past month. And I currently have this set at, I think, 2 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see there we're pulling, if I get it down to the bottom, about 6.7 degrees, 5 degrees. Yeah, but definitely, I mean, like I said, I've got frozen chicken breasts in here, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, I've been using this for a solid month and never had a problem with it so far. It is performing quite well. By the way, there's a drain plug at the bottom of both sides. So I've removed the basket on this one. But you can see down here there's a drain plug. So if you were to use this like a regular ice chest and you actually had ice in here, you could actually just remove the drain plug and get the water out. I'm going to go ahead and put this basket back in. And it does make it pretty easy if you've got a lot of stuff. All right, just to give you a sense of how deep this refrigerator compartment actually is, this is a 12-pack. And you can actually stack this on end, and you've still got just a little bit of room to spare. But you can see I can easily fit 2 of those. Let's see if I can fit a third one here. Yeah, so you can get a sense. I can stack 3 12-ounce can cases here, lengthways, and 2 widthways here this way, and then still have room on the side for a bunch left over. So this thing is just cavernous in its capacity. And if we take another look over here on the freezer side, as you can see, there's a removable basket on the freezer side as well. Now the basket on the freezer side doesn't go all the way down to the bottom on this side. There's the drain plug down there on the freezer side, if you can make that out. But there's extra space down there. So you can use the basket to sort of partition that, or you could utilize that without the basket. But as you can see, a lot of times when you look at these sort of like the 48 quart, kind of your typical car fridge size, the freezer sections are very small. And I mean, they get the job done for, a couple days, like a weekend trip. But if you're out and you're on the road and you got, a week's worth of food that you got to be carrying around or more, you need something that's going to be pretty sizable. And this is the kind of thing you probably want to use. And for some reason, I really like the satisfying clack that latch makes. It's the little things. Now, hopefully you can also make out the little grooves here on the side. And what that does back here on the hinge on the back side is it allows you to reverse the doors if you want. Put them into the right position, then you can take the door completely off. Put it on the other side. There we go. And now you can have the doors on the other side. So sometimes that's handy if you need access to the control panel. We're going to take a look at that in just a second. But it's really nice to have that option to be able to reverse the doors. So I appreciate the fact that the doors do reverse. Let's take a look at the control panel while we're at it here. You can see I've got a little USB-A connector there. I accidentally hit a button. It shows you the current temperature on both the refrigerator chamber and the freezer chamber. And you can see I'm currently in eco mode, so I think it probably kicks the compressor on a little less often, allows maybe a little wider fluctuation in the temperature before the compressor jumps back in. The little H tells me that's the battery protection mode, and you can switch between 3 levels, high, medium, and low, of battery protection mode, and I'll put a little thing on screen that explains that. But basically this allows you to control how aggressive you want the refrigerator to be in consuming power from your car battery, if in fact you're charging it through your car battery, and you want to make sure you don't run your car battery all the way down. And by the way, if you are connected to a car battery, this little representation here, whether you're connected to the optional internal battery that you can buy for this or your car battery, it'll show you the current voltage of the power source as shown right there. And you can see at the top, I'm actually running in Fahrenheit, and you can edit that as well. So if I were to just hit the little gear button over here one time, eco mode starts to blink. If I hit it again, it switches it to max. So the first time you hit it, it kind of wakes up the screen so you don't have any accidental button presses. And so if I want to put that back to eco, I can wake the screen up and then move it back over to eco. Now, if I want to start adjusting the temperature here, I can actually just start hitting the plus and minus. It's going to assume I'm editing the refrigerator side first. So if I wanted to bring that a little bit colder or a little bit warmer, and you can hold it, by the way. Right, and you can set your refrigerator temperature side, and you can set that all the way down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Go ahead and put that back. All right, now if I want to go to do the refrigerator side, I have to hit the little sprocket again, and then, I'm sorry, the freezer side, and now I can adjust the freezer side. I'm going to leave that at 5 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so anyway, that's the basics of how you operate this refrigerator. All right, let's see how quiet this LG compressor is. I can actually hear it running right now. So this thing is pretty much whisper quiet at only 40 decibels. All right, let's do a test and find out how well this refrigerator holds its temperature on both sides. So on the refrigerator side, we're pulling, I got 48 degrees right now. And on the freezer side, I'm at 1 degree Fahrenheit. So, let me pull the power. And we will set a timer and find out after a couple of hours how much the temperature has changed on the refrigerator side and the freezer side.
2 hours later.
Let's see how we're doing. And I'm at 48 degrees. So having all this sort of thermal mass in there has definitely helped retain the temperature. It hasn't really drifted much. So 48.3 degrees. And let's try checking the freezer side. And we're up to 27 degrees. So we're still below freezing. And my frozen stuff is still frozen. And I'm probably good for a couple more hours anyway before I start getting into trouble with that. All right, another cool feature on this particular refrigerator, I gotta stop using the word cool, is that it's got a electronic power switch, right? And so typically with an electronic power switch, when you turn the product on, and if the power goes out, the power switch will reset, which means when the power comes back on, you have to manually turn the product back on. Well, with this fridge, it actually has like a latching power switch, electronic power switch. And what that means is, so if you can see that it's running right now, and if I remove power, you'll see that it goes out. Now, if I plug the power back in, I'm not going to touch the power switch this time, and you'll see that it comes back on by itself because it's got that latching feature. And that's really handy because if you are powering this thing, say overnight, and for whatever reason, maybe your battery voltage gets to a low set point and shuts off, then you can at least know that when you start getting solar in the morning and your batteries start recharging, once the power supply is available again, you don't have to remember to manually turn the fridge back on. It'll come back on as soon as power is restored. All right, this is what the 115 quart fridge looks like in a full-size SUV. This is a 2021 Honda Pilot. You can see I've got, plenty of space on either side, but it does pretty much take up the whole back. Anyway, very good for trips to Costco. Now, when I did the insulation testing, I was doing that in my basement where the ambient temperature is about 70 degrees. And as you saw, the refrigerator actually held its temperature quite well after 2 hours. And on the freezer side, which is to be expected, the freezer side actually came up about 27 degrees from its starting point after that 2 hours with no power. So obviously insulation performance is going to be very dependent on what the ambient temperature is. But I would say in that 70 degree range, you could easily keep your stuff nice and frozen without any power for in the 4 to 5, maybe even 6 hour range. You'd probably be good. It also depends on how fully stocked this is. The more stuff you have in there frozen, the better it's going to hold its temperature. Now, if your ambient temperature is 100 degrees, you're going to get a lot less time than that on keeping your stuff frozen. All right, now I did do a power consumption test on this. I actually let it run for several days and made sure it was all up to temperature. How much power did it draw on average? When the compressor is running, it'll pull, when you have it in dual zone fridge freezer mode, about 45 watts. If you have it in freezer mode on both sides, you're probably going to get closer to 80 or 90 watts while the compressor is running. But in standard fridge freezer mode with an ambient temperature of 70 degrees, when I had my target temperature around 38 degrees on the fridge side and at I think 1 or 2 degrees on the freezer side, I was averaging over a several day period about 17 watts per hour. Or you could say it consumes from battery capacity 17 watt hours each hour in terms of battery capacity. So very efficient refrigerator. All right, so what are the things that I think are standout features on there? Well, a lot of these things are standard on a lot of refrigerators, like the integrated bottle opener. Not on all of these 12-volt refrigerators, but a lot of them do have integrated bottle openers, and I do very much appreciate that. I do really like the fact that it's got separate lids for each compartment, because if I'm only rummaging around in the refrigerator compartment, I don't want to be letting all the freezing air out of the freezer side, and having separate doors gives me that option. And that just helps make sure that the compressor doesn't have to run quite as often. And speaking of the compressor, it is an LG compressor, very well known, respected brand name, and it is whisper quiet, as you saw in the clips. I also like the fact that you can use this as an ice chest, and it's got those drain plugs on either side. And going back to the lids again, the fact that you can reverse those, that's actually very handy, because sometimes you need to have access to the control panel, and the lids would only be convenient to access in one side or the other. So it really is nice to be able to configure that based on how you position this wherever you're going to store it. I also really like that it has door activated LED lights. So even if the fridge is not actually running, if it's powered in any way, even though you haven't turned it on, the lights will come on as soon as you open the door. So, and they go off obviously when you close the door. So I really like that, because a lot of times in camp, you know, you don't have your headlamp handy and you want to be able to see what you're getting out of the refrigerator. I also appreciate that it's got these rugged corner guards on here. The smaller unit does as well, and those are really nice, because sometimes when you're dragging this around, it's easy to bang it on a curb or whatever, and this keeps the outside shell from getting split or otherwise damaged from that kind of abuse that I'm probably going to dish out. And then finally, I'd again say that I really like the fact that you can add an optional battery with solar panel recharging on that battery. I think that's just a nice feature to have, even if you don't ever actually end up using it. All right, so hopefully you found some of this information useful. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up on the video. I'd really appreciate that. And don't forget to check the links in the description below. I know that there's a time expiration on the discount, but anyway, check that out below and see if you can find the best deal from either NewAir's site or the one on Amazon. So thanks for joining me for this video. I do hope to see you in the next one, and until then, have fun out there.